Welcome to the fastest growing podcast on personal growth. We're teaching you the life lessons that you didn't learn in school. It's the Better Than Best Academy. And today I'm with Mr. OF himself. No, not OnlyFans. My man Oliver Foster is in the building. And if you could give a round of applause. Oliver, I want to just dive right into our conversation today. I saw you ask this question on X, and I'm curious to hear your response in it. What is one trait you would choose to get rich?
So I saw a lot of people probably have the same answer to me. They said kind of behavior or psychology. And it made me think a little bit. I didn't really know the answer to what trait I'd want. I was kind of thinking more of superpower, but then I got a lot more realistic answers. I thought, okay, it's just kind of better than what I think. And it made quite a lot of sense because really getting rich, kind of getting loads of money, you're essentially like player to player, similar to what kind of, you've heard it in before in the news, like Andy and stuff. You're basically getting someone else's money and putting it in your pocket. And what you've got to do is you want to get that a lot and you want to get a lot of money. You've then got to influence a lot of people. So you've got to influence the masses. And the masses it's still like trading, they react in certain ways. We as humans, we have similar kind of reacting to certain situations. So if you're able to interpret these situations and kind of examine how the masses perform, that's probably your best bet at getting rich. So my answer would be kind of understanding the human psychology to like an expert level. I think if you can do that, you can 100% get as much wealth as you possibly want.
Love that. That's a great answer. And I'm curious, one thing you mentioned that right away I find interesting is that idea of you have to influence people. And I'm big on that idea of wanting to be influential to wanting to be impactful. I'm curious, when you hear the word influence, what does it mean to you?
Swaying somebody's viewpoints and beliefs for guess what you believe is a more positive route. Whether it's positive or negative mindset, be positive. I guess you've got sort of the bad side of influence, the good side, but it is influencing somebody's beliefs away from what theirs are and more towards your own or what you want to install with somebody else. Me, because I kind of want to push that mental positivity, is I believe would benefit the person the most. So I'm influencing somebody to live a life that I think allow them to live the best life they can. But yeah, in that tone, it's just swaying someone towards whether it's good or bad.
Good. I think that's great. And that's I feel like there's a dark side too when it comes to influence. It's like you said, when it comes with having a platform and influencing people, ultimately when it's in the wrong hands, it can be quite detrimental when it comes to a point of manipulation. But I think it's great that you're coming from a positive light, because I think that that's something that the world needs more of, because there's plenty of negative things out there. So another person like myself out there being positive, I love it. And with this idea of influence and making an impact and kind of what you've recently transitioned to, I think it's been great that you've been making more content around this mental health space. What influenced and inspired your approach to mastering anxiety and depression?
It was from personal experience. I mean, I said a tweet today, actually. It's kind of my thought process towards what depression was at the age of 17. Very, very naive. And because I've never been to the depths that I went to for like in the past 5-year journey, I just couldn't comprehend how bad it could be. So when someone else had been to that level, I couldn't comprehend that. It was awful. So that kind of, with that experience, how that happened, kind of like I went down a massive journey of my own. And then I was in a place where I literally thought I couldn't get out. I mean, it was about 3 months. I was in my room and I remember laying on my bed and I just thought, I felt like this kind of like sort of pull down a lever to kind of pull slowly down. And that's how it felt. My head was spiraling down. I couldn't think of everything that used to make me happy and I felt nothing. And that made me even worse. And then I came out of that. And also with kind of the anxiety where I was literally in my room, the same room I'm in now. I was in for 2 days. Those blinds were closed. I didn't want to look outside because I could not deal with the life or the world that was going on there. Mentally was overwhelmed by it. I was petrified. And then I got from there where I am now. And it was about last year when I was on a plane to Italy. And now one thing about me was I was hate flying. My mum used to always scream and cry out. It was really bad. So obviously as a young child, you see that, you think, why is my mum crying? And then you get a bit of turbulence and you start putting two and two together and start getting really scared of it. Your own scare experiences. I paid it fine. COVID made it so much worse because that meant 3 years of planes. And I was like, I am not getting on the plane. My dad literally forced me to go on it's like a confidence course. So you see pilots, and you was kind of they're going through everything about planes, why you shouldn't be afraid, and then end up going, I asked her, I said to my dad, I'm not going on that slide if I don't want. He was kind of like, I paid this money, you're going to go on this slide kind of thing. And I was like, okay, I'll see it. And I went on it, and it was really good. That a month later, I went to Italy with my girlfriend, and I was on the plane with her. And I was thinking, I'm on a plane right now. 2 years ago, a year ago, I was petrified coming out of my room. I was depressed, I was scared. And here I am, conquering one of my the biggest fears. And I'm like, honestly, it's like, if I can do this, anyone can do pretty much anything they want. And that's sort of where it started. And on that slide, I started writing my book. And literally, I did about 1,000 words when I work, time goes quicker. So I was like, I can do this with time quicker. I got 1,000, 2,000, 4,000 words. And it started from there, it snowballed. And then she snowballed. And I was like, well, I was doing Twitter because I've got aspirations. I want to have my own business. I don't like work for someone else. So I wanted to do it in a better way. And first, it's copywriting. And I was like, well, I'm writing a book and I'm kind of trying to grow a personal brand. Why don't I just put both of them together? Like, why don't I just do the same thing? I'm doing copywriting. I guess I thought copywriting, storytelling, and I could write a book in that way. It wasn't my true passion. My true passion was kind of helping people get over what they thought that was impossible, because I thought it was impossible to go over what I was going through. And then I did. And I was like, well, if I can, I'm going to start talking about how other people can. And yes, that's where it started. That was the whole journey, and that's what influenced me to do what I'm doing now.
Such a great story. And I appreciate you for sharing it. Again, I think that sharing our story is a gift. And because we don't have to share those things, especially that vulnerability and that darkness that we experience and we overcome. I'm curious, what do you think was the shift for you that got you out of that rut? Because you mentioned you were in that space of you weren't opening the blinds, you were just in this lowest of low. I'm curious, what was the shift for you that got you to take action and get out of that space?
I mean, I've always been a very determined person. For instance, so what triggered everything for me was smoking weed. I just didn't have, some guys I don't know, weeds, cannabis, marijuana. It didn't have a good reaction to me at all. I did, and I'm pretty sure when I did kind of weed brownies with my mates, it was legs or something. And I got drug-induced PTSD. So it wasn't kind of like, I didn't want to take action. I just physically couldn't. Because when I tried, all these memories of flashbacks and stuff would just push me down, pull me down, keep me in my house. And that's why I was kind of scared. But the biggest turning point, I guess, was I was constantly on a journey to see what would make me feel better. And at first, I was so naive. I had no tools in my arsenal on how to defeat this beast of anxiety. And I just didn't know what to do. So the case was kind of, it wasn't like a switch. It was me on a journey, becoming more and more knowledgeable on what to defeat this opponent. Biggest turning point for me was meeting my hypnotherapist, because the techniques I learned and how I saw anxiety, viewed it, and how I actually understood how it worked, that's when it was completely turned around. I mean, I tried meditating for affirmations and they were great, but how I see it, and quite a good point, is from the hypnotist, because these things are very good at coping. It allows us to cope with them, but it's like a weed. They'll cut the weeds, they'll never pull the root out. So you can keep cutting the weed, but the root's always going to be there. To actually pull the root out, you've got to go to a place of trauma and get it out. And that's what I did with hypnotists. I did so-called eye movement, deep sensitization reprocessing therapy. And that basically, when you go into the place of trauma and you manually process that memory because you want your brain calm. And then it basically dissociates the emotions from the memory. And all of a sudden, the whole tower of Jenga falls. And it's like this anxiety that you thought you was possessed with ghosts. And it was kind of that I realized, I'm feeling a lot better. I can finally get over this. And then that's what during I writing my book as well. Going to every share I had just popping. And then I found fun about ice baths. And that was really the final piece of the puzzle. It was kind of, you got rid of the anxiety and now you're going to manage it day to day. And the ice baths can just make you feel relentlessly determined, savage, and also happy all the time. It wasn't, to go back to the question, I mean, it wasn't just one thing. It was just kind of just constantly on a journey and finding each piece. Kind of like, you're finding an infinite stone from Marvel. I keep finding on collecting it, and finally I collect them all. And then I'm here today.
I love that, man. There's so many great distinctions to pull out of that. And just to piggyback in my own journey, it's fairly similar to yours. And one thing I've learned is you can't band-aid a bullet wound. And I feel like for so long, if you're just trying to treat the symptoms and not the root cause, and I love that analogy of the weed and getting to
Yeah.
the root. And I think that's so true because when we choose to find the root and uproot it and replant a new seed in its
A
place.
beautiful thing.
Oh man, just the beauty of that, because a lot of people, and I mean, especially I feel like in this entrepreneurial space, is we can be really good at just burying down all those feelings. Like it's easy to just work more. It's easy
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
just like push yourself to the point of burnout, push yourself to the point of absolute exhaustion, and then you just go take a vacation and think it's gonna be fine. But it's so
Yeah.
much bigger than that, and I love that you mentioned, like, doing the deep work there and facing the fears is really there's no way around it but through it, and I
Yeah.
think I recently tweeted that, I think it was today even, and it's I've had to learn that the hard way, and that's one of the reasons why I got
There.
into coaching, is, like, if I can help my clients face their fears, face those roots of their trauma, and truly heal from the past to get to their future, then they're gonna be thriving, and I think that's great. You also mentioned, I think you mentioned EMDR, is that something that you did?
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
so I haven't personally done it myself, but I've been around circles that have done it, and it's definitely something I have in the future that I'm gonna lean into. But also the
Yeah.
cold plunging. Again, I love plunging, and
Yeah.
of course, I was gonna bring it out. I feel like it's a major key to your, I mean, mental, spiritual, physical. It really hits all those factors. And it's like you said, it's funny that I started cold plunging too because of the anxiety factor. Because I was in a space coming out of PTSD from lockdowns and COVID because we had our son and he was like barely a year old. And I remember just being I forced myself into even more so isolation to the point where I just got super
Yeah.
anxious, and then I found out about cold plunge, and it was amazing to see between that and doing neurocycles to really get to the root cause of the trauma. But man, the cold plunging is such a nice cherry on top. I'm curious, how did you discover its benefits, and what impact has it made on you?
So it all came from the book, really. It was, I was writing um, all the techniques that I use that kind of can benefit the person. So if I wanted to come up with the science behind it and the case study, so that it's not my point, but here's the science, so that it's kind of unbiased. And I kept seeing the ice baths, and I kept seeing, Wim Hof and all these people doing it. My friend who went through a similar thing, he was doing river dips. So, and it was winter. And I was like, man, you're crazy. Like, I'm not doing that. Go away. But I kept hearing about it. And I thought, I need to include this in my book because it sounds so good. It sounds so niche. It's so cool to include. But then I was like, how can I include something in my book that I haven't had seen done? So I was like, hey, next thing was right. A 30-day challenge. I'll buy one. I'll do 30 days and I'll see what happens. I'll be my own little test subject. So I went out, found one of those tubs that they're promoting. First, didn't know where to start getting the tub. I was like, what do I get? I got an ice barrel, but I got this big whiskey barrel and it'd been cut in half and it came and I got in it and it was like up to here. And I was like, this ain't gonna work. This is not gonna work. Yeah.
Oh man.
So I got one of those tubs, finally sorted it up. And I actually documented it all on TikTok. And I thought, I can, in my books, refer back to that if you want to see what happens, check it out, whatever. But yeah, I started doing it. And then I think it was day 5. I was driving back from work and I looked to the sky. And for the first time, my mind was completely silent. There was no chatter, nothing pressuring me. It was just quiet. And I was like, fuck, like this, wow, okay, this is cool. This is cool. So I kept doing it. And then it got to about day 14 and I was like, yeah, this is part of our routine now. I'm never stopped doing this. I've stopped it every single day. Did have that anxiety. It's leaching into my day-to-day life like I did before. I felt like I did random. And then I kept doing it and ended up, so I started in December and I did every day up until about March. So I ended up doing it for another 3 months on top than what I said. And then I was like, okay, it's my life. Summer, I've been doing cold showers every day and not ice baths because it's been quite hot. But now it's ice bath season again and I have been getting in this week. I've just got a lot of bottles. I've got the idea for you, the bottles. That's a great idea, by the way. I put up some big bottles frozen over there. I use that. Yeah, so again, I think I started swimming in the cold showers myself, so I'm feeling great again.
For sure,
It's-
yeah. I definitely enjoy the plunge. It's a little bit more work than a shower, but I'm in Texas and, like, it's ridiculous getting it down to the right temperature. 'Cause, I
Yeah,
mean, we're out in, like, the hundreds, which, I mean, I don't know if you do Fahrenheit or Celsius, but 100
so,
degrees Fahrenheit, so up there. So, definitely getting it
yeah, that's
the
it.
right temperature is it can be challenging.
Yeah,
But, yeah,
yeah,
dude, there's nothing like it, and I agree. It's the one of the single most things someone could do to see benefits, I feel like, right away. And
$100.
there's so many other things, and it's great, and it's important to do the things that are gonna take time to see results, but it's also kinda like you said, it's the stacking, getting all the infinity stones. It's getting all the
Yeah.
things that really puts you on the right path. Man, I'm curious, in your experience, what is the most underestimated factor when it comes to overcoming anxiety and depression that you find important to address? Like, obviously, we've mentioned cold plunge and things, but I'm just curious if there's something underestimated that people might not think about.
I don't think anyone's thought about hypnotherapy. Like I've brought that up. And I think that was because at first I thought the same thing. I was like, this thing that on Hollywood where they like, maybe things are chicken or something. Didn't know what. That was really important. The way you got into your kind of reprogram that BIOS, like it's where it needs to be, like 17. My advice to depressed people was just start be sad. The reason why it's so like stupid, don't be sad. That's your conscious mind telling 99% when it's your subconscious. If you're yourself or not, 'cause there'll be points where your subconscious comes in again and you're sad again. So that would be the reprogramming of that 100%. And you can do that by hypnotherapy and constant affirmations and telling yourself like self beliefs. Yeah, that'd be my answer to that.
For sure, for sure. You were breaking up a little bit there, but I was getting the gist of it. I just wanted to make sure
Yes.
it was gonna catch up. Let's see. One second, my questions disappeared. So, you mentioned how you were copywriting for a while, right?
Yeah.
And then you've made this recent kind of pivot once you had that aha moment as you started to write your book on a plane. I'm curious, what was it in your previous seasons and experiences outside of what you're doing now that you're applying to your current season?
So as in kind of like my, what I've picked, what skills I've picked up from
Yeah,
coming
yeah,
to
like
copywriting now.
the skills or can maybe the lessons that you learned from copywriting. And you mentioned you play sports too, right? You play football?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm curious because I talked to other athletes too. I played baseball and American football growing up, and
Yeah.
I'm always interested when I talk to fellow athletes how they've pulled some of those elements and put it into what they're doing now in the business space or even in the
Yeah.
mindset space.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a great question. So the copywriting aspect, I learned how to write on Twitter and actually keep on X and keep people engaged. So I see a lot of guys who are good about following great message, who are also in the kind of mental health space. But I look at their writing and I'm like, if you structured that right or you use certain kind of this grammar and terminology, you'd get so many more impressions and likes purely because how it sounds. For instance, the hook, the body, these kind of big call to action. So I pulled those skills away from copywriting and that kind of 3-month period I had. So I'm not like upset about going on that kind of hiatus at all. I think it benefited me a lot in my writing, kind of selling what I can offer to people in a more thorough way. For football, what I've learned, I mean, football was something I've been doing since I was 6 years old. I've learned everything from kind of how to be in a team, how to work hard. It's installed in me. So there was one key thing where like I'm endlessly happy for. When I first started football, I was at a really bad team and I was naturally quite gifted at it. So I went to another team and then I was really scared to meet all these new players and new kind of people when I was like 6 years old. And then I was like kind of scared and my dad brought me forth kind of like integrated me in and that was really good. And then the next team I joined about a year later, I was a little bit better at meeting new people and kind of chatting away straight away. Then I moved from that team a year later and now I was a lot better. And I met all these players and there was no kind of fear of me to meet new people and introduce myself and get along or kind of be myself because of the experience I had from being TT. And then that's something now the next, where in my day-to-day life, if I accident my IT job, there's a whole side in me now. I kind of thank my experience of football for that, how I mentally teach the team, because it's throwing me so many people. So that was kind of social skills, amazing. Then there's also playing the actual game, and that's kind of pushes you, teaches you from young. If you want to win the game, if it's a tight game and you want to be the one that wins, you've got to put 110%. And that lack of focus, maybe you give 90%, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and cost you the game. You've got this, that's very simple, really good engagement for months, and then it will slip, go, turn around, and now all of a sudden you're doing all your hard work again. And it'll take a lot longer. So carrying on, kind of carrying that snowball of focus and effort is something that I learned from.
I love that. You had a few blips. I don't know if it was your Wi-Fi or mine, but it's totally fine. I got the gist of what you were saying, and I can cut out the blips, so we'll be good. But yeah, I think that's great, and I love that. I love that question because again, it's those aspects of the pieces of our journey that really define us and mold us into the people that we are. And I feel like that can be good and bad because I feel like sometimes the traumas and the stories that are told over us, we can start to believe them. And I feel like a lot of our work as coaches and mindset coaches is helping people quit believing the lies that they've been telling themselves and start learning and almost like you said, reprogramming the mind to see the truth of who they truly are. Man, that's such interesting thoughts. So I have my notes are getting all over the place today. I'm like, what's going on? My computer is glitching a little bit, but we're good. We're all right. Yeah, and to go a little bit deeper into this idea of we touched on earlier about vulnerability, I feel like it's a key component in addressing mental health challenges. How do you approach and cultivate a sense of vulnerability in what you're doing as far as with your coaching and your personal brand?
I mean, you've got to open up with the person you're helping straight away. It puts you on a level. If you don't open up and you're asked them to, well, how can you expect them to? Because if you aren't kind of doing the same thing, I kind of put my heart and soul into my book, because I know it takes your heart and soul to get out of that horrible place you can be in. And by that, you've got to be honorable. You have to kind of set the standard. It's like you meet someone and kind of, you might say something personal to get something personal back to build that connection. You've got to kind of build these levels of connection with the other person. The only way to do that is by yourself being vulnerable. So that's why I'm quite open, and I'm not ashamed of anything that's happened, and I'll tell somebody exactly what's happened. I'm making vulnerable in that point, but that's me. That's what's happened. I'm not going to shy away from that.
I love that. And I agree. One thing that I like to say on my show a lot is vulnerability is a super strength. And a lot of people don't realize that. And I think it's a key, crucial component when it comes to not only sharing your story and building a personal brand, but just that it's a humanity factor, like you said, that ties us together.
Yeah, definitely.
And again, I'm really curious about your book. The more that you mention it, I'm curious. Could you share kind of a glimpse into the core principles that you'll be addressing in your book?
Definitely, yeah. So it's split into two parts. So I think I touched on it before. First half is my whole story from how I went from a happy, confident, but naive kind of person to completely shattered. And then how I built myself back up to being confident, happy, but aware. With the arsenal that if that's to ever happen again, destroyed quickly, and I'll never have to go for a journey again. And then the other half is separated into all the techniques I use, broken down so that, you've took my word for it, but you actually understand the science behind it, why we do it, why we say it's going to help. Because, it's why I tell someone to do something, but they don't know why, they're going to come and go into it half-heartedly. So, all the reasons why you'll go into it, I focused and give it everything. So the book is basically kind of the core part of the book is the things that I've gone through, kind of that I've turned my direction. Maybe I've gone in that story, there's a path of two ways, and it's where I've chosen another path. It's where I could have chosen another one, but I went the other way. So it started off with kind of, how it all triggered, how I believed it triggered, then what happened from that, and how kind of the butterfly effect happens, how a simple little night out with your friends can suddenly trigger a whole spiral of not going to university because you're scared to leave your house or whatever, not doing certain things because you just don't want to, you can't, and how it kind of shaped my life to what it is now.
Yeah.
And I think, I try to link it back with analogies of kind of a bit of history. I'm interested in history. So there's some analogies with more like kind of well-known names, of that's happened, and you can compare the two scenarios to kind of show, like even they were this big and this powerful, but they were human too. So you've gone through something they've gone through. It's not something that should pin you down, but it's what they did, and this is how they dealt with it. How are you going to deal with it? Are you going to do it the right way or the wrong way? Because it could be one person that's led to their demise, so you got to do the opposite thing, and it's not relating to yours. So we incorporate some history, we incorporate kind of the slide of science, and a lot of vulnerability. Yeah, definitely opened up to the point where, I've cut forward into every single emotion, so that you can be happy, you feel sad, you feel angry. I don't know, you can be shouting and be like, "Don't do that," and then I do it in the book. But that's I've really, really tried to make sure, and it's all interlinked as well. I like to tell little Easter eggs and foreshadows. So I've tried. Hopefully, it's yeah.
Man, I'm interested to read it. It sounds very intriguing. I like the duality of the stories and stats. I like that idea of bringing your personal journey, but then sharing the principles and the practical actions that people can take. Because I feel like it's necessary to have both, and that's really interesting. So I'm
Yeah.
curious. So at this point of the podcast is when we get to have some fun. So I have a new segment. I don't know if you've seen any of the previous shows, but I have a new segment where my previous guest asks a question for my future guest.
Okay. I'm assuming.
The question that my guest asked.
So if you were to look at your life today and forecast it out, assuming it stays the same until you're 65 or 70, would you be okay with that? And if not, what actions do you need to change so that when you get to like 65 or 70 years old, you can look back and say, I'm proud of myself and I live my life in like the most aligned way that I could. And I'm I don't want to say happy, but aligned with self-respect. Like you respect the way that you lived your life. I think respect is better to be optimized for than happiness. So what would those two questions, like forecast out, would you respect that person if you just kept doing what you were doing consistently? And if not, what would you have to change to be proud of and respect that person at an old age?
It's interesting. I'll say that's actually, that question is probably the building blocks of what I'm doing now and why. So the biggest fear I've always had is to never reach my full potential, to never kind of get where I know I can get if I really, really tried, which is why I was so scared about what was happening when I just kept when I kind of get out of my room. And that's why I made sure I did what I did. So I'd say, yeah, that's the answer to that is if I could have a trajectory of 100%, I would be happy with where I am at 65. If it continues kind of linear, I guess linear of like what I'm doing now. Yeah, definitely.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And I'll wait till the very end to ask you the question you have for your guest. So I'll give you that time to be thinking on it, because I like to end the podcast on the cliffhanger of they have to go next week to hear the question from you. But with that said, I also like to flip it, because you've been a great guest as I've drilled you with tons of questions that probably have got you thinking, including that one from Taylor. I'm curious, do you have any questions for me, or did we not miss a topic that you would like to discuss?
So my question, actually, another question for you when we're talking about this football one, you kind of asked what I've learned from it. What did you take away from your sporting career?
Man, I love it. I love that question. I would say a few things. The first being the discipline aspect, big time, because it's that idea of being super consistent and showing up even when you don't feel like it. I feel like that's what sports really instilled in me, because it's like when I was playing American football, we had 2-a-days. So we had practices before school and then after school. And there was plenty of days that I had to wake up super early to get to these practices that I didn't feel like it. I mean, I might have got crap sleep. I might have been focused on other things. I might have went through a breakup, whatever, happens when you're in school and you're so dramatic. But even still, it was something that was very consistent. And I feel like that's what built those habits in me today to say
Mhm.
when I roll over and my alarm goes off at 5 a.m. and I don't feel like it. Now, obviously, sometimes when you're sick, you need to you need
Yeah.
to take that time. But being able to find that balance of, okay, I need to go and do this because it's the consistency over time and it's the discipline over time that's going to get me those results. But also, it's that idea of I feel like there's such a community aspect in team sports as well. It's like realizing that you're coming together with other human beings and the common goal is to win or the common goal is,
Yeah.
to like to get to this level and achieve this goal. And I think there's something about it that builds that carotamy. Man, I cannot talk to camaraderie.
Camaraderie.
There you go.
Yeah.
Man, I was like, why is that word not coming out of my mouth today?
Camaraderie.
But yeah, and it's that idea of having that building that trust and knowing that you can rely on the person next to you, but also that you're doing something that's bigger than you. Because so
Yeah.
many times in a lot of stuff that we're chasing, and you can even be that way in sports. Like, yeah, it's a team sport, but I feel like some of the best athletes and the ones that probably go to win most of the championships and go on to be greatness, like, yeah, they are great individually, but they have that ability to cooperate with other people. They know it's not always about you. And I feel like that's two of the big things that I can think of that I pulled from athletics and that importance of health, because obviously
Yeah.
you got to be at a peak. The better shape you're in and the better healthy and the way that you take care of your body translates on how well you perform on the
Yeah.
field. And that was a big thing for me is like I remember when like growing up, my house was full of like sodas and we would drink
Yeah.
like Powerades, not realizing until it was too late how much sugar was in those.
Yeah.
And like I remember not like just cutting out sodas completely when I was in like middle school, early high school, and I was just like, "I'm gonna cut out sodas because I wanna be healthy and I wanna perform well in sports." And to this day, I'll rarely have some sodas. I'm not sure if they call them sodas in the UK, but like Coca-Cola,
Yeah.
toxic
Yeah.
drinks,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, like
Yeah.
those drinks
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
because in the US, those things are absolute poison.
Oh, yeah.
But just and it's like those little aspects, and again, it's like I feel like those are definitely the foundational pieces that build what I do today. And then if I could do one more, man, I feel like there's quite a few things that come out as I continue to speak, is that mastering the basics and the fundamentals, because if you can do that, then that's gonna be what you build, that foundation's what you're gonna build on. Like, yeah, you can
Yeah.
have pure talent, but it's that I remember one of my coaches would always say, "Hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard." I know we've all
I was
heard
about to record that.
like, we've heard it 1,000 times, but
Yeah.
it's so true because it's like I remember being super small when I played football, American football, so, like, I was, like, super short, barely weighed anything, like, probably
Yeah.
a big gust of wind could probably blow me over, like, that's how small I was when I was playing football,
Yeah.
but I had that tenacity that I'm gonna outwork everybody else, and I remember, like, whatever it was in that space drove me into what I do now is, like, I know that I can work hard and get and develop the skills I need to. I may not be the biggest or the strongest at the time, but just watch because it's gonna
Yeah.
happen.
Yeah.
And, like, I feel like that's such a level of grit and tenacity that you need if you wanna survive while making a a business, like starting a business or being online in this personal brand space is, like I feel like that's really important. All of those are really important attributes to have: the discipline, the consistency, the outworking your competition, and the maintaining your health also, because it's super easy
Yeah.
when you're building a business to forget about your health. But yeah, man, I could go down that rabbit hole for hours.
Bro, those three, like, spot on. Like, those, I think the first two things you said about discipline and like you with the team they're the two things that I actually forgot to kind of add on to like what I think is that is when you said I was like 100%. Yeah, the consistency. I currently train twice a week and I've got a game Saturday. But there's so many times where I can't go, especially in the winter when it's like -2 degrees. You just finished work and you're like, I just want to have a nice hot shower, a nice dinner, but you feel like out. No, freezing cold and train for 2 hours. Yeah, 100%. And with the team as well, it's bigger than you. It's like you're all working towards a common goal. There's that camaraderie there that, you know, I quit football last December till about June because I was still enjoying it. And I came back because I missed the competition. I missed pushing myself to what I could be if I really put my mind to it, the discipline. But the biggest thing was kind of just the camaraderie. Like you go to training, you work hard, you have a laugh with your mates and stuff. And I missed that so much, just letting loose. But how, you said actually like really business and yeah, that's something. There's one thing you said at the end. I forgot what it was, but I hadn't thought of it before. I think of the basic foundations. You see that with all the players. If they build the players that build the basics, they have the basics on lock, are sometimes better than the players that have kind of these like really cool skills in their locker, just because they have the basics completely locked down.
Mhm.
And bringing that, I never thought about bringing that into the business kind of realm of things. If you do have the basics like kind of locked down, especially on X, if you're tweeting kind of every day is consistent 5 times a day and engaging like 4 times a day consistently, that's the basics. You're gonna grow and maybe a lot quicker than someone who can write really, really well and they're not consistent purely by your hard work and your kind of foundations. So that was a really good insight. Actually, I didn't think of that.
For
But
sure.
yeah, it's cool.
And even as you speak, it makes me think of, it's important to have, I don't know if hobbies would be the word, but I think it's important as you're trying to build something great to have something that isn't like do or die. Like it's something that you can go away to. And I feel like that's another great tip in like the space of when I try to help people beat burnout. I feel like a lot of times it's not that we're burnt out because we're doing the things, because you can be doing the things that you love and still get burnt out because you're
Yeah.
too in it. And it's almost like if you have something that you can go step away and do, like I think that that's what's beautiful about maybe working out, or like for you, it's playing football, that you get to step away from building the business thing. And for
Yeah.
that chunk of time, you get to not think about it. Cause I mean, if we're not careful, we'll be totally consumed
Yeah.
with building this thing. And nothing's wrong with having that level of obsession to go after something. There's something that's noble and great to be done. And at the same time, it's good to have those breakaway moments. But yeah, and to circle back to that, applying the basics to business, I think is huge. And it's not even necessarily like the hard skills, it's the soft skills too. Because I feel like those get neglected because we always hear so much of like, get great at copywriting, get great at marketing, get great at sales. And you need all those things. But underneath all of those things is those soft skills of showing empathy, being able to connect with someone. And I feel like if we can master those things, and then we gain the impact, then we gain the influence where people are just like, okay, I really trust this guy and this guy cares about me. So of course I'm gonna buy anything he's selling.
Well, that's the personality aspect, isn't it? Like you see a lot of them say kind of, everyone kind of talks the same thing about the same thing. The only difference you have is your personality. And like I said there, about having the empathy and kind of connect on a human level. That's your personality. So if
Yeah.
you are really good at kind of, and the biggest reason why someone wants to buy it from isn't really, if they don't like it, they're not going to buy it.
Exactly. No, like, and
So,
trust. We hear it all the time, but it's like, and that's what I find so interesting. Like cliches, the basic things, the simple things that you need to do, we need to do in our life to succeed, is we almost get tired of hearing them and we almost get numb to hearing them, but they're cliches because they're true.
Yeah.
They're like, they're said so much because it's like time tested proof. And yeah, no, I agree. If someone can know, like, and trust someone, then that's really a major key to, I mean, lifelong customers, lifelong followers, lifelong audience building, whatever you name it. And I think that's a huge aspect to think of. Man, so good. Ollie, it's been a great conversation, and I'll definitely, as we kind of start wrapping up, definitely go give him a follow, connect with him, get his book when it comes out. Not sure when it's coming out, but I can't wait to hear it. I can't wait to read it.
Soon.
It's going to be awesome. You'll definitely have to let me know so I can get a couple copies.
Thank you, bro. It's been great. First podcast, so it's already my favorite.
Already. I love it. That's awesome. That's the goal. I hope you felt comfortable enough to be yourself and to share your heart, your story. And I know that someone's gonna glean some not only practical things, but I know that they're gonna be like, wow, this Ollie guy's cool. He OF and he's not OnlyFans. When you tweeted that made me laugh so hard. I was like, it's so funny.
Bro, I'm gonna keep it.
Right. Just keep retweeting.
You know what I mean? Yeah, cool.
I love it, man. But yeah, so as we wrap up the actual recording, this is when you get your chance to leave a question for the next guest.
Okay. I've got one question. I don't know. Tell me if it's not good enough. Person ever heard this?
Was that not a fire conversation? I know you're going to leave better than before you tuned into it. And if you enjoyed this conversation, be sure to hit the subscribe button on screen. And if you want to continue watching more inspiring and encouraging content, you can click here. If you really got something out of this, or if you have any feedback so that we can make this show even better, don't hesitate, drop a comment below. As always, thank you, and I look forward to seeing you again soon.